Hi there, it's Keith from the Evangelical Free Church, Stony Stratford. Firstly, I want to wish you a happy Christmas, and I'm going to read a few verses from the Gospel of John, the first chapter, verses 10 to 13, and then verse 18. He, that's Jesus, was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or of a husband's will, but born of God. And then verse 18. No one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who is at the Father's side, has made him known. Some years ago, it's quite a few years ago now, when I was at my first church, we were having the 50th anniversary celebrations. And as the church had started with a mission with a tent outside the church, we decided to do it in the church grounds in a tent. And I'd, phoned around, and one of the people who agreed to come was the local MP. She very graciously decided that she would turn up. Now, my mother knew the local MP a bit because she'd written to her several times and spoken to her, and I think had even met her once or twice before. Certainly, she was a good MP, and she was quite well known around the constituents, so her face was familiar. Well, Mum, being friendly and wanting to welcome people to the event, sat down next to her and said to her, "Oh, I don't think I met you before. Where are you from? And what's your connection with the church?" And the MP said, "Well, I've been invited by your son. I'm the local MP." And Mum got the giggles, and the local MP, she saw the funny side of it, because Mum was thinking she really should have known who this lady was. Now, there can be a funny side to things like that, but sometimes to not recognise something can be a very serious thing. You see, we see in these verses God has made himself known. If we were to go to the start of the chapter, verse 1, it says this: "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning." Now, as this passage goes on, we see that the Word is clearly Jesus Christ. And we see that this is the Creator. This is the one who's given us life. That's something, isn't it? Yeah, the danger is we don't recognize him, or we don't give him the respect he's due. It tells us, doesn't it, verse 11, which we just looked at. He came to his own, but people don't recognize him. Think about it. Born in a stable, born in obscurity. That's not exactly the welcome you'd expect for someone who had created the world, who was so divine that, as the carol says, angels worshipped him. Yet, here's the incredible thing. It says he came to his own. He identifies with us. Yet, we also had to note, we don't give him the proper place. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet there's a wonderful offer. Despite all that, what would be your reaction if you were someone who was rich and powerful, and you went somewhere where people recognize you and they don't give you the time of day? Well, I think even if we were, pretty humble, we might be a little bit put out. Some people might be a lot put out. But here's the wonderful offer. Jesus and God does not act like that. We can be part of God's family. There's this Wonderful picture in verse 12 and 13. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or a husband's will, but born of God. Let's do that in reverse. The point is this, isn't it? It's God who starts the process. It's God who reaches out to us. That's what grace is. We don't deserve anything. We've basically not recognised Jesus. We've not given him his rightful place. We've not given him the time of day. Yet God still reaches out to us. Here's a second marvellous thing. We're rebels. We're like the tenant that doesn't care for the place that the landlord has provided. And if we have a good landlord, the place is beautiful, but they wreck the place and they don't pay the rent. You'd expect the full extent of the law to come down on someone like that. And the fact that we've ignored God and we've gone our own way and we put ourselves at the centre of our lives and done our own thing, which is what sin is, should mean that we deserve the full force of God's law against us. But no, here's the offer, the gracious offer. We can be part of his family. You see, the fantastic thing is, this is the Lord's initiative. Just a couple of verses that really sort of sum this up. This is in an early Christian letter to the Ephesian church by the Apostle Paul. He writes this is chapter 2, verse 8 and 9. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not of yourselves, it is a gift of God. God has graciously given us a way back to him. And it goes on to say, not by works, so that no one can boast. It's not by our own effort. I was saying in the first Christmas talk, I could go before God, I could say, hey, I'm Keith, you know me. I'm a pastor. I preach your word. I do a lot of good things in your name, or at least I think I do. Wouldn't that be arrogant? When the faith has been given to me to believe, and grace has been extended to me, and my works count for absolutely nothing. Wouldn't that be a major mistake? Well, of course it would. So what are we to do? Well, quite simply, we're to look to Jesus. Verse 18, no one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who's at the Father's side, has made him known. That is why Jesus came. When we look at the Gospels, we see Jesus Christ teaching, interacting with people, showing us what God's like, showing us God's love for us, and then going and taking our sin, our self-centeredness, all the times that we've rebelled against God, and dealing with it once and for all on the cross. He's made God known. Jesus came into this world and he lived in the shadow of the cross. That was his purpose. That is why he came. That is grace and mercy shown to us at Christmas. Thank you for listening, but if you want to know more, we've got out the front, we've got books which you can pick up. The Real Christmas, that's a good one. If this one isn't there, there'll be something else. Do feel free to take one and have a really good Christmas. Thank you for listening.